The tough boys that I fought, we ended up being very respectful to each other after that, right? That was before I got glasses. I grew up in an immigrant family, and I saw over and over again that my parents, they just kept their head down and they worked. They didn't want to, like most immigrants, they didn't want to make a fuss. You know, if things were, if there was some injustice, they didn't want to say anything, right? And I kind of felt that, you know, growing up and being assimilated as a Canadian, that everyone should have a voice. Because I lost a lot of my language, I don't speak Cantonese very well. I'm really hesitant about using it, and I don't feel like I belong in, you know, the Chinese culture as well. So one of the things that I did through the building community, through cultural expression, is because there were a lot of Chinese seniors exercising in the park and we wanted to connect with them, I went to a Chinese seniors group at the Renfrew Park Community Center, and I spoke to them in Chinese. And, you know, first of all, I apologized, saying that, you know, I don't speak very well. And these little ladies, it turns out, speak the same or very similar dialect because they came a long time ago, and they were just so thrilled, and they treated me like their granddaughter, and they, oh, you're doing very well, right? And it just gave me so much encouragement and so much of a sense of identity, which a lot of people lose when they lose their language, right? So that was one of my, you know, most memorable moments, actually, speaking Chinese when I didn't think that I could. So, and being welcomed. I ended up working at an inner city school doing neighborhood work with some pretty poor families, and I actually got quite in tune with the First Nations culture there and their struggles. In the middle of that, I had Claire. And so I became a mom and a homeowner and was looking for childcare and ended back at the neighborhood house. Because I knew the neighborhood, I just felt really comfortable. I felt like this was the place for me. I really think that Claire, because she's been in this environment and I've dragged her out to meetings, I've dragged her out to events, she's really had to live a lot of the community life. And in one respect, I think she resents it. She doesn't want now, you know, being a teenager, doesn't want anything to do with what I do, right? But she also does her own thing in the community, and she's quite a leader. And she draws quite a lot on my experiences, I think, to do her thing in the community. And that I'm just really proud of. I kind of see it as the neighborhood house is the hub, and it's sort of like a, you know, a magnet right in the middle. And as you go further, you sort of lose that magnetic power. But as people sort of move away from that, they create their own little hub. And I think in my neighborhood, that's what I've done as well. I got all my neighbors out to clean the ravine behind us, and I had only been there for a couple of years, and some neighbors who had lived there for 7 or 10 years got together, and they didn't even know each other's names yet. And so they, you know, learned each other's names just by getting together like that. But part of it was, you know, I wouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have been so approachable, and I wouldn't have had that vision, or else I wouldn't have been able to do something so simple and concrete unless I had that experience through the neighborhood house, right? You know, just that very simple step of doing it built community on my little street. When I came back and I was looking for work again, and Paula, of course, said, "Oh, you know, I just have something that just came up. Would you be interested?" And so it was a literacy project. All I had to say was, I'm with the neighborhood house, and the doors would just open. It was like magic, right? Yeah, and then the last thing that I'm involved in, that I'm staying with, is the Renfrew Collingwood Community News. And that is actually another interesting progression of the neighborhood house, because Paul and I, we like to bill it, the Renfrew Collingwood Community News, as the Collingwood Neighbourhood House's first social enterprise. So one of the things, it's almost like an extended family, right? And this is where I learned to be sociable. And I think that there's been people, I feel like I've been mentored, right, by Paula, and it's kind of made me into the person that I am. Being able to do outreach and, encouraging people to find a voice and to promote themselves and to, say what wonderful things are happening in the neighborhood, and helping in just, a very small way to help people with that, and I just love it. I really think it's just really me. That sense of belonging is something that the neighborhood house engenders, and it's just made me feel like I want to give back. Like, this is where I belong. This has been where I was welcomed. This was where I was given an opportunity to grow and learn. This was where I was accepted as, being myself. Right, and that's really what keeps me coming back,